Yes guys, welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix YouTube video. My name is FPL Nacho, and of course FPL is back this Saturday. And in this video we are going to discuss the top transfers going into game week 9. So as always, if you are new around here, please do consider smashing that subscribe button. And of course, if you are looking forward to today's video, please do drop a like. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay, first up, looking at game week 9 in isolation, Liverpool are one of those teams that have a fantastic fixture at home against Everton. Now, it's worth noting, Sean Dyche of Everton has been quite an unpredictable team who have accumulated massive XG over the season, but from a defensive perspective, haven't been the Sean Dyche team that we have come to know in the past. And I do think from an attacking perspective, this is a really good fixture for Liverpool assets. Now, the reason why I like targeting this Liverpool fixture is because some FPL managers who haven't wildcarded yet might not have any ownership in the Liverpool players. Now, if you're one of those managers like myself who hasn't pulled the trigger on a wildcard, owning Mo Salah as part of a free transfer strategy is quite a difficult task. So we might need to look elsewhere at some alternative options. And I think Diogo Jota is exactly that man. He's only 1.2% owned in the game, which is ridiculous. And at 7.7 million, he offers an opportunity for managers who can't get to Mo Salah to have a slight piece of the pie in this fixture. Because even though I think Everton are not as bad as others make out, I still think it's a really good fixture to target, especially if you're in a position where you might be wildcarding in game week 10 and you're looking for a 1 week punt. I don't think they come much better than Diogo Jota. Now, looking at his underlying numbers, XG per 90 at 0.64, it's actually really solid numbers, and it's worth noting his open play XG is 0.64 because he hasn't taken any penalties. It's actually better than that of Mo Salah's open play XG. So Jota, when he's playing for this Liverpool team, is actually really the spearhead in that side, playing as the forward, usually with Diaz off the left and Mo Salah off the right. So really encouraging underlying numbers for Diogo Jota. And in terms of big chances, 0.63 per 90. They aren't the same levels as the like of a Darwin Núñez, but still decent underlying numbers, especially when he's only 7.7 million and of course a midfielder in the game. Now, in terms of Diogo Jota, I think the big question mark right now is what is his game time going to be like in game week 9? Because of course, if we're looking at him as a 1 game week punt, then we need to have some clarity that he is actually going to start. Now, the reason why I think he definitely is a consideration for our teams is he was suspended in game week 8 due to his red card in the previous game week. And the big thing about it as well is the South Americans in that forward line, Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz, are one of those that actually play quite late on in the international break. And of course, Liverpool play in the 12:30 p.m. kickoff on the Saturday. So the rest time between those South American players in Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz and the kickoff for game week 9 is very, very short. And with the attacking talent that Jurgen Klopp has at his dispense, I think Diogo Jota is going to step back into this team. I don't expect necessarily Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz to need to be rushed into the side. So I think Jota is the perfect 1 week punt if you are after that sort of option. The one thing I would say is if you're looking at him as maybe a Mo Salah replacement for the next 4 game weeks, because we need to remind ourselves the fixtures for Liverpool from now on are amazing. Everton at home, Forest at home, Luton away and Brentford at home. They're brilliant fixtures, but I don't think Jota can replace Mo Salah over this period. The only time I would consider Jota is for a 1 game week punt in game week 9. And it's worth noting is something I'm currently considering is maybe a Marcus Rashford replacement for this game week. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. You can see his predicted points for game week 9 is only 1.9, but it's worth noting we haven't necessarily accounted for guaranteed game time for him. So if we were to know he would play 80 minutes, 70 minutes, those predicted points would definitely jump up to maybe around the 4 mark, which is definitely good in comparison to the other midfielders in the game. So let me know your thoughts on Jota in the comment section. I want to show you another Liverpool player that needs to be on our radars and maybe more of a long-term move for those managers that need a cheap enabler. Now that man is going to be Liverpool's Tsimikas. Quite a surprising pick considering he's only played 4 minutes so far this season. And the reason why it is quite difficult to gauge how Tsimikas is as an FPL asset is because of those lack of minutes this season. So what I've done is I've brought up the minutes and of course his underlying stats based on last season as a whole, because we don't have any information to judge Tsimikas off in this season. So we need to look back at last season. Now, it's worth noting, Liverpool are a slightly different beast this season. They have a different midfield. They build up differently. They don't have their fullbacks bombing onto the touchline and whipping in balls. However, I still think it adds some relevance to the discussion in terms of what kind of player we would be buying if you were to bring in Tsimikas. So, XG last season per 90, 0.06, expected assists at 0.12, and also the attempted assists at 2.11 per 90 is really solid underlying numbers. The one thing I would say is Tsimikas did take a lot of set pieces when he was integrated into the Liverpool team last season. With the likes of Szoboszlai, with Trent, I don't necessarily think that this is a guarantee that Tsimikas will step up and take corners, indirect free kicks, etc. So I would expect his expected assists to be less than what we saw last season, just because we're seeing a slightly different Liverpool team. So if you are buying Tsimikas at 4.4 million, don't be thinking you're buying the next best thing in terms of attacking talent. I think he's a great enabler into this Liverpool team. Now, of course, you're probably sat there thinking, Nacho, why are you even considering Tsimikas as an option? Well, during the international break, Andy Robertson went off what seemed like a shoulder injury. Now, we don't know the extent of it. And of course, I wouldn't advise anybody making an early transfer on somebody like Tsimikas right now. But if Jurgen Klopp does come out and says that maybe Robertson is out for a month, I think Tsimikas is a really nice enabler into this Liverpool team. As we discussed previously, Everton at home, Forest at home, Luton away, Brentford at home. I think that's a great time for not only clean sheets over this period, but maybe the odd attack and return for somebody like a Tsimikas. Now again, I think he's one of those where you tread carefully with him. You bring him into your team if you want to, if you need that enabler in your defence, knowing that if Robertson comes back into the team, you need to bench Tsimikas and have another defender that can step up into your team, because I think moving Tsimikas to another defender later down the line might be quite difficult unless you have money in the bank. So for me, he isn't a desperate transfer because I don't really know the timescale of Robertson, and I personally don't need a defender transfer. But if you have a Stupinan, if you have another defender that is out injured and you need that backup, that little bit of bench option, Tsimikas is probably one of the best options around right now if Jurgen Klopp confirms that Robertson is out for at least 2 to 3 game weeks. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. For game week 9, he's predicted to score 3.6 points, which is really up there in comparison to other defenders in the game. So I think he could be a really nice differential option for your FPL team. So next up, or last up, I want to look at the forwards in the game, because I think naturally we're moving towards a certain type of forward, and I think there are other options available to us right now in the game. So the 4 players that I've brought up for your screens here is going to be Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins, Liverpool's Darwin Núñez, Man City's Julian Alvarez, and Arsenal's Gabriel Jesus. Now, what I love about the game right now is that it's starting to go off into different directions. The template team was very strong in the opening game weeks, but with some FPL managers wildcarding earlier than others, some going without Erling Haaland, it's meant that the forwards have started to separate a little bit. Myself, I currently have the Haaland-Alvarez combination, but I know a lot of FPL managers that have Haaland and Watkins, and I also know others that have Watkins and Alvarez, or Watkins and Darwin Núñez. So this is a great opportunity to try and pick the right one over the next few game weeks. Now, it's worth noting, at 8.2 million, with Watkins being the most expensive, he is posting decent underlying numbers, 0.55 XG per 90, and expected assists of 0.27 per 90. But the reason why I really do like Ollie Watkins is because of the fixtures coming up. West Ham at home I actually don't think is the best entry point for him, but being guaranteed minutes and basically being the heartbeat of that Aston Villa team, I wouldn't feel terrible about bringing him in that week, but it's not the best entry point. However, game week 10 at home against Luton, Nottingham Forest away, Fulham at home, Spurs away, Bournemouth away are brilliant long-term fixtures for him, and it looks very difficult to ignore him as an FPL option, especially if you don't have any sort of Aston Villa attacking coverage. So even though he hasn't got the best underlying numbers, I think he ticks all the boxes for guaranteed game time, upcoming fixtures, and of course just the predicted points looks great at 20.2. The one thing I would say is it isn't the be-all and end-all. Because of his price rise going up each and every day, it seems now to 8.2 million, some of us may have missed the boat from a price perspective and need to look at cheaper options, and I definitely think they're still available in the game. First up, you can see Darwin Núñez is dominating in all of the departments. XG per 90, 1.01 is ridiculous. Even the expected assists is leading the way at 0.33 per 90. But the big chances are the thing which I can't get my head around. 2.32 big chances per 90 is absolutely ridiculous. And with the fixtures coming up for Liverpool being Everton at home, Forest at home, Luton away, Brentford at home, even then after they got City away and Fulham at home, the long-term fixtures are amazing for Darwin Núñez. But the big problem with him is, can we guarantee minutes? And that is where I start to question him as an FPL option. Yes, I do think that he could outscore the most points over this period if he was to get the same minutes as the other three options. But can I guarantee that? As I mentioned, game week 9, he'll be playing late on in the international break for his national team. So that is a bit of a worry because Jurgen Klopp has plenty of players available to put his place up for grabs. So for that very reason, I think Darwin Núñez is a real high-risk pick, but I can't justify picking him over Watkins, especially when I think Mo Salah is such an essential player for our FPL teams if you were to wildcard in game week 10. Now, the cheapest of the bunch being Julian Alvarez, and this is where it gets really interesting because so many managers are moving away from Julian Alvarez, but he's continued to be such a fantastic option. Now, it's worth noting his underlying numbers are actually the worst from an XG per 90 at 0.34. He isn't getting those big chances like the other assets. He's scoring from, let's say, lower XG opportunities, but he's such a fantastic finisher, playing in one of the best teams in the league. And the upcoming fixtures, I think, are really being overlooked. Yes, they have Brighton at home in game week 9, which we know is a tough fixture, but defensively, Brighton are all over the place right now. Man United away, a brilliant fixture. Bournemouth at home, Chelsea away, and then they got Liverpool and Spurs, which might deem to be a tough fixture. But defensively, I don't see any of these teams being watertight defensively. I would argue maybe Chelsea are the toughest of the bunch. So if you have Alvarez right now, you can't afford Watkins, you can't go up to a Jesus. I think you are perfectly fine just holding Alvarez over this period. I think the sexy thing to do right now is to sell him because other FPL managers are doing so. But I think patience with Julian Alvarez is perfectly fine. For me, I don't want to sell him. But if I was to wildcard in game week 10, because Watkins is at home against Luton, I do think it is almost impossible to ignore him over that period. But if you've already used your wildcard, you have Alvarez, perfectly fine to hold over this period. Now, the last forward that I wanted to look at was Gabriel Jesus because he is the biggest differential of the bunch, slowly returning back to this Arsenal team. Now, historically last season, he was an amazing asset and his numbers so far are based off small minutes in the league, limited minutes in the league, 0.4 XG, very small XA per 90. I do think Gabriel Jesus could be an amazing differential. If this was the Arsenal team of last season, I definitely would jump aboard. But my slight worry about Gabriel Jesus is that I do think Kai Havertz can be deployed as a number 9 in this Arsenal team. I think Arsenal have looked very good with Havertz as that 9. And I think Arteta is slightly starting to understand that as well. So I'd be worried about Gabriel Jesus' minutes. I don't think he is actually secure like the likes of Watkins. So I don't think we need to look at Jesus as a guaranteed game time pick in this Arsenal team. So even though I think Jesus is a great pick, a great differential, I actually don't have him up there. I probably have him as the 4th best option right now in the game. And the big thing about Jesus, if he does return to the team, is it makes Martinelli a better option. And being 7.7 million and a midfielder, I'd actually rather invest in Martinelli rather than Gabriel Jesus in our FPL team. So that is going to wrap up today's videos, guys. The game week 9 top transfers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be really interested to know, in particular, on those Liverpool assets if you are looking to buy them. That just leaves me to say have an amazing day. Please do consider dropping a like and smashing that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.